Welcome to Feed the Matriarchy. We're sisters, moms, and women who spent way too many years trying to shrink ourselves physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Now, we're done. Each week, we get real about food, body image, mental health, parenting, and how patriarchy has shaped the way we live in our bodies. Together, we'll unlearn the lies of diet culture, talk about what nourishment really means, and explore how taking care of ourselves is a radical act of resistance. This isn't a podcast about shrinking, it's about expanding. So let's feed the matriarchy.
I'm not bossy. I'm the boss. Because
I'm the boss.
I think we can.
I think you just did.
What did you
That
say?
little.
you said that we're so boss right now because we're doing we're multitasking a million things while trying to set up to record the podcast.
Yeah.
And I said I've been told I'm very bossy, but like Tina Fey said, I'm not bossy. I'm the boss.
I'm the boss. Is that you trying to do a Philly accent?
I don't know what it is. When my kid was really little, we did this thing where this child was really afraid to walk into school anyway. And so I kept having the kid go over and over again, I'm the boss.
I'm the boss.
And it was a whole thing. It was like a 5-year-old. I'm really careful with, we'll talk about our kids today. I'm really careful with my kid. I don't even reveal gender.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about any of that.
But anyway, this kid kept going, I'm the boss.
I'm
5
the
years
boss.
old, and
it's the cutest. You
amazing.
Just want to pinch their cheeks when they do that.
Yeah. Now a 17-year-old cheeks. Get away from me.
Yeah. No, those 17-year-old cheeks don't want anything to do with you right now.
I
mean, they love you, but those cheeks don't need to be pinched. Yeah, okay, welcome to Feed the Matriarchy, everybody. We just jumped on in there. Heather and I are talking today about parenting and being the boss, right? Okay. That one's going to die. We're not going to do that anymore.
I'm sorry. I'm done.
I think it's also being a Philly girl. I think it's I don't think you're good at a Philly accent, and I'll say that as someone who also myself is not good at a Philly accent.
I never shook the Minnesota out of me.
Yeah, all those O's and A's. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we moved when I was like 12 or 13. It just never left.
Yep. Yeah. So I don't have any Philly. I love Philly to my core, but I don't have a Philly accent in me. Mm-hmm. Anyways, it's so let's do the introduction to what we're talking about today. And this episode is going to air on Mother's Day, which I think is pretty appropriate. Because what we are talking about today is, and this is why Heather and I were going off on being the boss, is body image, motherhood, and parenting. And I wanted to bring this up specifically because one, I happened upon this topic in my Instagram because I was talking on some reels about the ways that I parent around body image, and like they took off like wildfire. Like all of a sudden everybody was DMing me questions and asking me, and I realized like, oh my God, we need to be having conversations around this. If we are parenting kids of any gender, we need to be having conversations around this. Yes. Two, also though, the other thing that was happening is that I was getting questions from people that aren't necessarily parents, but they were thinking about their own childhood and how they were parented around body image, and like people were having light bulb moments. So please listen to this. I mean, well, I'm not begging people to listen. Well, I guess I kind of am begging people to listen.
Please. Now we when we started this, we were like, let's do a few. Now we're kind of invested.
Now we're begging people. And now I'm like, God, please listen. No, but what I was actually going to say is please listen to this even if you're not a parent right now. Yeah. Even if that's not, because I do think that I say a lot in my Instagram, like I'm reparenting myself in a lot of things, and I'm parenting my children differently. Yes. I also want to put a big preference around this to say that I don't believe that we were parented quote unquote wrong by our parents. I just think that like the sign of the times was that like, people of that generation, like the older generation, they don't have the understanding that we have now about like what helps or hurts around body image. I think we have a lot more.
Yeah, we've said it a lot, Joe, in the past. Like, in some of our very first episodes, we really think our parents did the absolute best they could. There's no shade at all. And we've learned since then. So,
Yeah.
and they have
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. 1,000%. Heath, what do you think the hardest thing is to parent a child in this generation around body image? What do you think is the most difficult thing around it?
Interesting, because on the one hand, my perception is that things are better
Mm.
than when I was a kid, right? There's no get in shape girl, for example,
And if
right?
you don't know what Get in Shape Girl is, do yourself a treat and go back to some of the earlier episodes and listen to
Yeah,
Heather talk about how that impacted her to this day, actually.
right. But yeah, and and then there was that whole like Dove campaign for beauty where
Yeah.
all every size is beautiful or whatever, and it for
Mm.
a while it seemed like maybe there was a period where things were getting better,
Yeah.
and I think the pendulum has just swung back.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've talked a lot about that. And right now, the issue, not just in body image, but parenting in general, is that everything's online and everything's immediate. And your kid has this walking access point everywhere you go and everywhere they go. And you can try to curb that. But at some point, that's especially when you get into teenage years, it's really hard to
Yeah,
not for
exactly.
your kid not to have a smartphone. And I gave up the ghost on that. My kid has a very basic one. It's not a fancy one, but my kid has a
Yeah.
smartphone.
Yeah.
And Insta, we're my child's a big Insta user, and you're just inundated with everything all the time. I thought
Mhm.
about the fact I had a friend a few years ago who was telling me that her daughter was watching a party go down on Insta in real
Without
time that
her.
she hadn't been invited to. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh my God, I think that would have psychologically destroyed me at that
Yeah.
age.
It
Like,
it
how
would have
do the
psychologically
children
destroyed.
do this now? That's completely impossible. And
Yeah.
there's just a whole other set of like always in your face that's happening
Mhm.
to your kids right now, and you have to give them the tools to process it all
Yep.
in
Yeah.
in real time, because
Yeah.
it's always front and center with them. And I think about that all the time. And if there's anything about your kid that's unusual or different, again, I'm going to be speaking in generalities
Yeah,
because
we're
I
not gonna
I
give we don't wanna
protect
out our children in any way, shape, or form on this. I'm not gonna give
my
specifics
kid.
about my kids either. Yes.
Yeah, but
Which
my
actually,
kid's
I think
different.
I'm just gonna time out and say, because we've said this on the podcast earlier, like we are daughters of a minister, and we used to be sermon examples over and
Oh my
over again.
God,
And no shade to
poor
my
dad.
father, but like
I've forgiven it.
but I'm kind of like, I don't, I like thought about that recently and I was like, oh my God, I do not want to have my kid be an example at all, because that was some like trauma there to be like, everyone knows your business. So we are not going to give our kids business.
It's true.
Yeah.
Everyone knows your dad's version of your business,
Yeah,
which
let's
is
say
way
that.
worse.
So
Just
now,
know your
now,
business.
now we're back in our childhood. Now,
Anyway,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So I'm careful about that, but I do have a kid who defies the norm. I'll
Yeah,
just say
yeah.
that.
And you're working to parent them with a strong sense of self, which I would actually equate to a strong sense of body image. So a
Yes,
strong sense of self is a strong body
it
image, and those
is.
two things go together. And that's what I'm looking at with my kids.
It
Like
is.
how do I raise them to be fully and 100% themselves? And to go back to what you're saying, fully and 100% themselves when they are just fucking inundated with messages about who they should be. Not even, and again, I'm not even talking about body image, but I'm talking about like as a person, be this, be that, be smart, be cool, be like, what does cool even look like? And I just think, I think it's really hard to be a kid right now. I
Mm.
think it was really hard when we had the Get in Shape Girl and I mean, I remember doing Sweat into the Oldies and the,
Yeah, we talked
and
about
the,
all
and
that. Yeah.
But, like, I mean, I didn't have to face an internet that, like, constantly gave me messages about who I was supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to face, I believe what you might be thinking of is, Snapchat, so people can, like, see things
Mm.
at live in real time and where everybody's at. That
Mm-hmm.
freaks me the fuck out. Like, I just
Mm-hmm.
think, like, if I had seen that all my friends were at the mall without me because I could see their location, that leaves you feeling, like, really like, a sense of insecurity. How do we parent around this, right? How do we go
Yeah,
back and give a strong sense of self to our kids when, like, when everywhere around them is telling them something different, you
I
know?
know. My child has really good friends in high school now. Like,
So one way is growing like that strong
mm-hmm.
community. And I'll say like
I
every
saw
I'm
that
gonna
with one of your kids recently too. One of your
yeah.
kids
Yeah.
had a party and all the friends were over. And I remember turning to you and I was like, "Your kid has really good friends.
Yeah,
Like, these are
they've
really good people."
they've worked, but I've also what I've watched that kid do is kind of like hunker down and like just solidify those friends. And I think it's because like shit got crazy as they grew up around like other dynamics and friendships and stuff. And it was like, these are my solid people.
This is my
This
core
is who
group
like
of
kind of like
people.
this is who I know has my back.
Yes.
And that kid doesn't care about coolness or,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like street cred points or anything like that. They're just like, I want this quirky group of people to be my people.
Yeah.
Uh, and again, I'm just going to be a broken record. This is what I was about to say, and I love it because you just like took my point home. Um, the we're talking about parenting here, but I would also say like, hey, Johanna learns this herself, like in my 40s, like who's got my back, who are my people? Because when I get outside messages all the time about like what I'm supposed to look like or what I'm supposed to be, or I feel insecure about something, like I go to my people. I mean, I go to you, Heath. I go to you. I go to we have a group of we call them the sisters, you know. And they're not necessarily blood relatives, but they're the people that we like take our deep insecurities to,
Yep.
and we
They're
go
the
back to
sister
them.
chat.
They're the sister chat. Maybe we'll get them on. I've talked about having them on.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get them on. That's who we go to when shit gets really real. Insecurity gets really high, you
Yep.
know, for us.
And we know that these people they're it for us. And I think somehow our kids have largely cultivated those groups of people around them at relatively young ages. And we can talk about how you foster that.
Mm,
I didn't do that until
yeah.
until I was older, really.
Yeah, I actually think those are some of the people that we're having on. Welcome to Heather's like people.
Totally. Yeah.
That's how like much they become your people. Like you bring them to with you now even,
Yes.
you know.
Jen, Christina, Penny,
Yeah.
Amanda.
And
Yeah.
a diverse
Yeah.
matriarchy of like people that you've carried with you. Yeah.
Yeah, Ignacia. Yeah, I've had my crew on. I think growing up the daughter of an evangelical minister and the eldest daughter in the 80s,
Mm.
I believed for a while that it was my obligation to be everybody's good friend.
Yeah.
That I
That's
had
like
to
that like good girl
rescue
sort of like
everyone.
perfect mentality. Yeah.
Yeah, and that
Yeah.
I owed it to everybody. Like
Mhm.
I needed to open up a central line.
Yeah. No, you don't. No, you don't. And again,
Yeah.
I'm just here's another thing. Like one, we're talking about you. We're gonna be talking about like this is how we raise our kids too. Like if you are a parent right now, they don't have to be everybody's
Hmm.
buddy. And actually, that's body image because that's strong sense of self. I have boundaries. I have limits. I know where
Yes.
I stop and where somebody else starts.
Yep.
That's body image.
And I can say to people,
Now, yeah.
peace be with you.
It's just that's like that little ditty that we have where it's like, well, you're wrong and peace be with you.
Yeah,
Like, yeah.
this is my thing I've learned in my 40s,
Yeah, peace be
right?
with you.
Peace
Yeah.
be with you.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
not my problem. This is not my issue. And this
Yeah.
isn't working out. Maybe it's me and maybe it's you.
Yeah.
Maybe we're just a bad combo.
Yeah,
But
it doesn't have
peace
to
be with you.
I don't have to save everybody or rescue
Mm-mm.
everybody. They're not like they don't have to they're not they don't
Mm-mm.
oh, you said to me before everybody doesn't have to be in your marching band.
Mm-hmm.
And I
And
was
you
like,
don't have to be in everyone else's.
and
Now
you don't
that's
have
the
to
flip
be in
side of
others.
that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because I think I thought I had to be in everybody else's marching band for a long time, and then I realized I mean, you got to choose your people, and
Yeah.
you choose your people carefully.
Yeah. Yeah. Thousand
Yeah.
percent. 1,000%.
Yeah.
You choose who um
Who has access
is
to
are
your
you
life.
yeah, and who's in your corner. Oh, and I think that
Yes.
I start teaching this to my kids now, like in elementary school, in a nice way. And we talk about like advocating for others and standing up for others and being really inclusive. We do a lot of work around that in my house.
Mm.
But we also, like, point out if somebody has been mean or if somebody has been putting you down, like, you don't have to hang out with them anymore. You don't have to invite that person into your space. If that
Just,
person
but just somebody who's got problems that are bigger than you and bigger than the ones that you can solve.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
not, you want to, it's not like we've talked about this, Joe. Like, you teach your kid to stand up for the kid who's getting picked on. I always said the most
Yes. Yeah.
disappointing thing that I could ever hear, if from a teacher at school, is not that you swore or whatever. Like, who
Yeah.
cares? Don't do it. It's I don't really want to
Yeah.
deal with it. But
Yeah.
but
Please don't drop an F-bomb in
I don't want to
class,
deal
like,
with it. I don't want to get
but
that call. It's
it doesn't
annoying.
bother me as
It
much. Yeah, it
doesn't
doesn't
bother
bother
me.
me.
It doesn't bother me.
Mhm.
What bothers me is if I ever hear that you were picking on somebody.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
Now you violated family values and family code, and now we got problems. And
Yeah.
now I want to know what happened. Um, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so and I think it's your obligation, if people are ganging up on somebody else. I do think you have an obligation to step in, like we were saying in the episode the other week. Like, you have an obligation to speak up. You can't sit
Yeah.
silently.
Yeah.
But that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that everybody's your problem and that you owe
Yeah.
everybody a central line in your life. And there are
Yeah.
people who've got issues and problems that you can't solve, and it's not
Yeah.
your obligation to
Yeah.
solve them. And you got to choose who's in
Mhm.
your crew, right? And you got to, and
Yep.
you make that
Yeah.
choice judiciously and carefully. And you pick people who also don't try to dim your light, and who
Yeah, you
don't
pick
try
people
to who
that, like,
don't
yeah, champion
yeah.
you.
You don't pick people who
Yeah.
are, you pick people who don't try to dim your light. And I have let go of friendships,
Mm.
and it's not hard. And I think it's, it's not been easy, and I don't want to speak out of turn about them, but I've let go of friendships because I thought they were getting toxic, and
Well, they yeah.
it was no longer
Yeah.
serving either one of us to be in that space
Yeah.
together.
They
Yeah.
were yeah, they were dimming your light. There's that, I mean, this is not a Johanna phrase. This is a really, like, classic phrase, but you can't light yourself on fire to keep other people warm. You just can't.
That's
Like,
it.
that's you
And
just
teaching your
can't. And I
kids
think that
that. Yeah.
mhm. Teaching myself that. So, again, I'm parenting myself around this, and then I'm parenting my kids around it. Other people's needs are important, but they are not more important than
Yeah.
your own. And I
Yeah.
think that especially, I mean, I have children of all different genders, so I don't just have like a girl, but I do think that girls are so much more socialized. Even when I try to teach this stuff, I think the girls are so much more socialized to think like I have to take care of everybody else. It's like the eldest daughter phenomenon that you're talking about, Heather, and really
Yeah.
feeling like, that responsibility, other people's needs are more important than mine. Fuck that shit. They are not. And that's, I think, like, something that I'm still parenting myself around and that I want to, like, continue to parent my kid around. But there's
Yes.
something that's really interesting that what we're talking about, and we're talking about it really naturally, and I haven't named it yet, but I want to name it, especially for anyone who is parenting right now. We do not have this stuff figured out 100% in order to parent our kids around it. Now, what I mean with that is I get so many people that come to me and are like, I struggle with my body image. I hate the way I look or I hate the way I feel in my body, but I don't want to fuck my kid up with it. But it's hopeless, right? Because I don't feel good in my body. And I'm like, no, no, no. Like you're kind of judging. It's like you're judging yourself with that same rubric that you use to judge your body. Like the way that you're judging your body is like, my body's not good enough because it's not perfect. And then you're judging yourself and what you're doing. Like, I'm not a good enough parent, like, because I'm not perfect. And I'm like, that
Yep.
the whole rubric of perfection just needs to get thrown out the fucking window.
Oh
You
yeah.
don't have to be perfect in any of this. We can raise our kids like in a really healthy way without having any of that perfection. And
Joe,
just because we're still struggling doesn't mean that we can't also give strong body image to our kids,
yes,
a
and
strong sense of self.
yes, and don't you think it's important too, in some ways, for your kids to watch you do that?
Yeah. Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, to
Yeah.
say, you know, this is a thing that's been hard for
Mm-hmm.
me.
Mm-hmm.
And I know in my head that
Mm-hmm.
this isn't right. And I'm having a hard time translating it to my heart. But
Yeah. But I'm working on it.
here's the kind of things I'm working on. And that's human. That's
Yeah.
deeply human. So welcome to the
Yeah.
human condition. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. What we need is to give ourselves compassion for that process, and what we emulate then for our kids is compassion
Yeah.
for themselves in process.
Yeah.
Like if we and that's what we actually want to model.
Yes, I
Not
think
just
that's
like
right.
I'm feeling my body today, not just like I feel great. Like I mean if you have those days or if you feel
Good.
that, fabulous. You do you.
Roll with
That's
it.
amazing.
Yeah.
Roll with it. But if you're not having that experience with yourself, it's okay to say that's not where I am right now. That's not
Mm-hmm.
what I feel right now. But and I love the way you put it. My head knows one thing, my heart feels another. Because I think
Yeah.
kids can relate to that. I think they can understand that. And again, I think it models it for you. Like I know it. Here I am in my frontal lobe. I know it. But in my physical like body, like I'm still struggling to put the shorts on or wear the bathing suit or or take care of myself. I'm still struggling to do the things that I want to do to take care of myself. But I'm a work in progress, like, and I'm gonna keep like, advocating and fighting for myself with it,
Yeah.
you know?
One thing I'll be really transparent about is I've had a hard time taking photos of myself since my
Mm,
child came into the world. I haven't always looked the way that I wanted to look or the way that I think I look or I don't know. So
mhm,
I don't have a lot of photos of myself. And my husband said this to me yesterday. My kid and I went on a trip recently, a college tour, and
mm.
yeah, we found this like photo booth.
You
And it
have
was
such great
so
photos!
fun. Oh, it was so fun.
Yeah, you have such
You
great
know,
photos.
and
You
it
guys
was
look so
so
happy
great.
in it.
Yeah, and I just like it was like a really crowded, tiny little photo booth, and I was kind of like half in, half out, and I was making all these funny faces,
Yeah,
and they were so cool, and I sent them to my crew. I sent them around to my people.
yeah, to
Like
the sister
look,
crew, yeah.
this is me and my kid, and my husband has it now tacked up like on his desk. He works from home. He has it like tacked up there, and he
Yeah,
was looking at it and he said, I absolutely love this. And he said, Heather, it's absurd that we don't have more family photographs. He's like, your kid doesn't care. Your kid doesn't care what you think you look like. Your kid
mm,
wants photos and memories of you
with
together
you.
as a family.
Yeah, yeah,
That's what
yeah,
matters to them.
yeah,
They're not
yeah,
thinking, oh, looks like you've gained a few. since,
yeah.
you know,
They're not
since,
looking at you going
since,
like,
since I was born, like
yeah,
what
yeah,
they
yeah.
want is,
Or even like what
yeah,
as women, we like assess it week to week. We're like, oh God, I think I like. I mean, I'm actually gonna say like this is a part where I don't actually do this anymore. I used to do this in my eating disorder days, and again, we'll go back to that episode really early on where I was like, I think I almost like OD'd on this diet stuff, so now I don't do it as much anymore.
right.
But like I know that conditioning exists because of like women have been told to do that. Like, were you good this week? Did you gain weight? Wait, I'll bounce back from having a baby. Like it's all that stuff.
Mm,
It's not because like your body is bad or you're bad or like that you're doing it all wrong. It's just because you're not the only woman to struggle with like putting yourself in a picture.
yeah,
Like it's so much of it is just the culture that we're all swimming in.
exactly. Yeah, and then seeing, having my kids see that and go, you know what, this is ridiculous, and this is what's
Mm,
important, and this is the value, and I have had a wrong perception of this.
mm,
I've had a wrong mentality about it, and I'm going to tell you that. I think that's powerful, and I will say this for our parents. I'll say a lot of things for them, but especially this. Um, they were never afraid to say they were wrong.
they would always say they were wrong. Yeah. I would actually say, I would actually, yeah, I would say that's probably, I'm thinking through it in real time. Like, it's probably the most powerful thing that they gave us,
Yeah.
admitting that they were wrong. Yeah.
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 Yeah. And just
And that's the
saying,
most powerful thing I want to give to my kids too.
yeah. And saying, and also like, and that's not like, and that's not, that's, it's okay. Right? Like, I'm
Mhm.
sorry.
Mhm.
I was wrong. And here's how we move forward. And here's how we do the right
Yeah.
thing now. Right? When
Yeah.
you learn something, you change. When you learn something
Yeah.
new, when you realize an error, you course correct, and
Yeah.
here's how you do it. And I think that's one of the best things that you can give your kids. On body
Yep.
image stuff too, and food stuff too. Like, okay, I this was ridiculous. I shouldn't have been doing this. This is a or that I
Yeah.
said a thing. I said a dumb thing about myself, or I said a dumb thing about food, and you know what? That was a dumb thing to say, and here's why. Right?
Yeah. Here's what I'm going to do differently, because I'm a work in progress, and I'm learning. Ooh, here's a great Good Place, the Good Place quote. Any Good Place fans?
Oh,
Po
love
Buddy's
it.
nerfect. Po Buddy's nerfect.
I started saying that all the time after that show. I
It gets
absolutely
kind of
love that
annoying
show.
actually. While Po Buddy's nerfect.
Show, the whole premise of it, I think you could argue with me about it. For any Good
I
Place
mean, now
fans
it's
out
going to turn
there,
into a philosophy podcast, and I don't know that I can match you, but
maybe.
sure, go for it.
Oh no, whatever. Yeah, is can people change? I think
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah. Yeah.
premise
Yeah,
of the
that is.
show.
You're true.
Can people
Yeah.
change? Right. And I said
Actually, that
it
is,
in a
it's a thousand
few,
percent the premise of the show. Yeah.
yeah, and I said it a few episodes ago, and I was like, I have to believe they can, and I have to believe I
Yeah.
can. I have to live my life on
Yeah.
that premise, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so teaching
So if
your
you're
kids that too.
struggling, yeah, and if you're struggling with like your own like sense of body image, or feeling, like less than in yourself, like believe that you can change. Know that I mean, it's not an easy road to walk. I'm not trying to like make it like sunshine and rainbows around it, but like believe that you can, and know that it's okay to be in process as you parent through that.
Yeah,
Know that it's
exactly.
okay to be in process. So Heather, I well, one, I'm sorry for your experience with feeling like, since your child was born, like you didn't want to put yourself in pictures. But two, I'm thankful that like you had this experience where like you saw the straight up joy in that picture.
Mm-hmm. So fun.
It's just straight
Yeah.
up joy. And
Yeah.
you were like, "Motherfucker, I want to be in joy, like, more." Well, I guess, I mean, you and your partner had more conversations around it, but it was like, that's what I, because you're talking about it in terms of your kid, but I also wanna talk about it in terms of you. Like, you're like, "My
Mm-hmm.
kid doesn't care about, like, me," and I'm like, "I want it for you." And so if anyone, and this is, again, I'm gonna do that pivot that I've been doing the whole episode. If anyone's listening and isn't even parenting right now, but is just listening and thinking about it for themselves, I want you, listener, who struggled to put yourself in front of the camera, I want you to be able to see that joy for yourself. Like, look at, like, not just about like doing it for a child because you want that child to have pictures of you in the camera. I want you to also do it for you. Because I think that is the
Yes.
sort of like the connector of like reparenting yourself, and
Yes.
parenting if you're parenting. Like we need to reparent ourselves around this. You know,
Yeah.
that
And
is
we
there is
talked about
beauty
that a
with
lot
that.
with, yeah, we talked a lot about that with the episode with Penny, right?
Yeah, we did.
Just
Yeah.
learning
Yeah.
to really love herself and see
Mhm.
herself for all of her beauty and for her wholeness, and see ourselves for all of our beauty and our wholeness,
And our
and
wholeness.
having your kids watch that process. And I actually think about it with her, just going back to that episode. Now she's got kids. She said she's got a sixth grader and a third grader, and they're watching
Mhm.
their mom at a critical age for themselves. They're watching their
Mhm.
mom at a critical
Mhm.
age for her start to
Mhm.
really love and really accept and really take care of herself. And what a
Yeah,
powerful
1000%.
thing for her kids at that age,
See,
especially her oldest daughter, to watch
to
that.
see.
That's just so cool,
Yep.
you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And again, it's not a perfect process. It's just a process of her coming home to herself, you
Yep.
know? And
Yeah.
that's the work.
I think back on this, our all of our episodes, and this idea, like, can you change? And I think that's also kind of part of what we're doing here in Feed the Matriarchy.
Yeah.
Can we change as
Yeah.
women, and can our culture change? Right? And what can we do
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
facilitate that? And every person we've had on in every episode, it's kind of been about that. When you start with like Jen Heatner talking about
Yeah.
matrescence and what she was
Matrescence.
learning as a new
Yeah.
mother and how to take care of herself. Jen Butler, right, talking about
Yeah. Yeah.
self-arrest. Deb,
Yeah.
talking about age and
Benfield.
learning that
Yeah.
she didn't,
Yeah.
Benfield, that she didn't have to. I mean, it's been a really cool. And Amanda Pyle
Yeah.
learning, in
Yeah.
her
How to allow her
late
body to
30s
take up
and
space.
40s.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to embrace the
Yeah.
fullness of herself. And what a cool trajectory we've had, Joe, right? Over these
Yeah.
past four
Yeah. Yeah.
months that
Ooh,
we've been
and where we're
recording.
going. Spoiler alert, we have some really, really cool guests coming up too. I
Yeah.
like that just drive all these points home even more.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
But I think that's what we're doing. Is it possible to change? Yes.
Yes.
Can we change our culture? I'm gonna try fucking hard to change our culture. I'm gonna do that by reparenting myself and by parenting and raising a generation of kids. I won't give too many indicators of my kids, but I do have boys that I'm raising, and I feel a strong responsibility to raise them, kind of in the same way, but in a different way. Than what we're talking about, because I feel a very strong responsibility to raise them as feminists. I feel a really strong responsibility to raise them as as kids that stand up for other people and that are really inclusive. And I feel that really deep in my core. And I think that that's about body image too. And I'm bringing that up today because I think that's about raising them to be strong in their own bodies and their own body's capability, but raising them to be inclusive of other people's bodies and inclusive of accepting other people's where other people are at, and actually raising them to stand up in their voice for where other people are at too. And so that's my part of changing the culture.
Yes.
So I did a post on my Instagram a little bit ago, and it was about parenting. It's about some of what we were talking about. And what I was saying on it was essentially, I think sometimes as parents, we don't think that we're doing enough if we feel like we should be giving more to the world, or if we think we should be like doing more advocacy work. And there's a point to like that. I think it's important to do advocacy work. I do a lot of advocacy work myself, but I also think that like what we are tasked with and charged with, specifically what I know I'm charged with, is raising children and raising these little boys to be boys that are inclusive and that have strong voices. And I think
To
that
be
that
feminist
actually is.
boys. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is part of like almost like in some sense it's like advocacy work.
It is. Yeah.
I don't know.
It is. I'll say too, in terms of like the whole, can you change the culture? What a moment to be saying that in. Because at this point in time, I don't have any problem saying it. I just feel like we are in such a dark, toxic space in this country.
We are.
Deeply.
Yeah.
Deeply, deeply disturbing. And we've been there, and I recognize that as a white cis woman, I haven't always seen it because it hasn't been directed at me, but it's been present. But I think now it's like we're just screaming the quiet parts as loud as we possibly can as a culture.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and it's this inflection point in the question, like, can you change the culture, right? Can we come back from this? What can we do? Again, like, I have to believe it, that even if I don't get to see it in my lifetime, even if things remain dark for the rest of my natural days, I know what I'm supposed to do. I know what my obligation is, and I know what the right thing is to do. And the right thing is to continue to fight for what's right, to continue to try to change things in myself, to continue to model that for my kid.
Yeah.
And continue to engage in what I know is right. With respect to like changing the culture too.
Yep. Yeah. 1,000%. Well, and I again, like it doesn't have to be perfect. We're not going to look perfect as we model that change and as we push forward that change. But I mean, the idea is still like showing up and doing the work. The idea is still showing up and modeling.
Yeah.
Modeling how to fight. Yeah. Okay. So I think one thing that we need to talk about and again, keeping my kids' stuff private. But I think one thing we need to talk about, especially as white ladies here running a podcast about, teaching our kids like body image and body diversity and inclusivity. Um, what do we do and what do I do if I hear my kid using a negative language around another child's body?
Mm.
Because I've had this happen. I've had it happen. My kids, even with everything I preach, and I just did an Instagram reel on this not too long ago. Even with everything I preach, sometimes I catch my kids regurgitating some garbage that they've heard around, like, it's kind of like goes back to what you're saying, like on the interwebs that they've heard, or that they've heard from like kids that watch the interwebs that are saying things. So I do two things around that, and I'd be curious to hear what you do as well, Heath. Because I'm going to couch all of this in saying I'm a strong believer that my body liberation, my body freedom, my belief that my body is a beautiful body is directly tied to everyone's body liberation and the belief that everybody's body is beautiful. I can't believe that I have a strong body and a beautiful body unless I can highlight and champion body diversity, because that's the premise around it, right? Unless, if not that, then we are all just stuck trying to kind of like become this one homogenous thing in order for us to be beautiful in our bodies. And that's not what it is. Body image is about celebrating body diversity. So that's why I think these conversations with our kids are so important, because what I want to raise them to know is that body diversity is beautiful. What I
Yes.
want to raise them to know is that it's not one type of body that is beautiful. And if I hear them coming out and saying something that's derogatory about another type of body, I call that shit out. Now, I have to do it in two very careful ways. And again, this is me as Johanna the therapist, but I'm really curious, Heath, what this would be as you not being a therapist.
Right.
But I always ask my kid first, what do you mean by that?
Yes.
I always say, what do you mean by that? One, because maybe I'm jumping to conclusions. I've been known to get on a soapbox or two. That shouldn't
No
shock
way. No
anyone.
way.
No way. Two, it's kind of that thing like when somebody says something racist around you and you have to go, what do you mean? I did this in the other episode. People have to get kind of uncomfortable with thinking about what they mean. And I'm not trying to like do a gotcha moment with my kid, but I am trying to teach. Like, okay, what do you
Yes.
mean? And a lot of times they don't even know. A lot of times they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, yeah, I heard somebody say that. It's literally, we had this moment and my kid was like, well, he said that about himself. And I was like, well, just because a child made fun of their own body doesn't mean that you should be
Yeah.
making fun of that body. That's not what we do.
Yep.
That's not what we do. You don't know that child's history with their body. And just because they said it about themselves doesn't mean that they're okay with what you just said back to them.
Yep.
And then, and I'm gonna, I want to, I gotta give props to who I need to give props to here. I got this one from you, Heath. Then I go forward and I have my kid, if they're old enough, I have them research and write an essay on on
Oh
on
man.
on that topic.
My
And
kid's like,
that's a
do not teach other parents to make their children write essays. Yeah.
that's a Heather special. That's a Heather special. Because I watched you parent in that way and I thought, oh, that's really great. One, like they have to grapple with the topic themselves, right?
Yep.
So if my kid was making fun of somebody's body because they were in a larger body, I have my kid write an essay on bullying and the effects of bullying around around fat phobia.
Hmm.
And even if it's just like 3 paragraphs, now again, this is if they're old enough, like
Right.
even if it's just 3 paragraphs, it like they still had to grapple with the topic. No, and if they're younger, we just talk about it, right? And maybe we even Google a few things ourselves to
We
see how
look
much
at
it
it
hurts.
together. We
We
research
look at it together.
together. Yep.
Yeah.
We
But I
research
think it's
together.
to me it's a twofold. It's like, what do you mean? And then it's like, okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty of that topic. How does that kind of thing hurt other people so that we know not to do it again?
Yeah. What does it mean to other people?
Yeah, what does it mean to other people? And that takes the outside experience with it. That takes it from just being like, because I think it's a dog eat dog world sometimes, and it's like you're just like every man out for themselves, and that moves it away from that, and it moves it into like
Yep.
how is everybody else feeling? It moves it into inclusivity.
Yes.
Moves it
That's
into
right.
inclusivity,
That's right. Yep.
and that's what it's about. That's what
It
it's about.
is.
And I do think that this is about body image for our kids. even if it's about like celebrating somebody else and bringing awareness to somebody else, I do think that this is still about growing strong body image in our kids, because if they can see that diversity in bodies is a good thing outside of them, then they can see that for themselves. And
Yes.
spoiler alert, their body is going to change all throughout time.
Yep.
I have some trash people, out trolls, coming on my Instagram, and when I talked about how I handle when my kids like say something about like, "Oh, I'm fat," and I don't just challenge that, but I like help them kind of walk through what they feel and what they mean and how and body diversity is good. I have some trolls come on my page and go, "Put your kid on a diet."
Yeah.
You know why that shit doesn't work? Because then you've taught them to diet, you haven't taught them to feel strong in themselves. And their body is going to change all throughout time. Their body is always changing. So if a diet works once, quote unquote, I need to make sure that everyone knows that works is in quotations. If they lose weight from it, all you've taught them is that losing weight is the most important thing.
Yes. Yes.
You haven't taught them how to, and they're going to have to constantly get into a yo-yo cycle of losing weight.
Yep.
And that's
And
not what we want. And that's why I want to celebrate diversity outside of my kids and inside my kids.
yes, that's right. Yep. So
Well,
then,
I did say I was a soapbox lady, and I got on a
no, it's
soapbox.
good. You know, I mean, this podcast is a soapbox. You know,
Yeah.
that's why we're doing it.
That's why we're doing it.
Um, so you asked me, what was the question? What do I do
How would you
to
do it? Because and I said I go off on a soapbox. Like, how would you do
if
it? Because you're not a therapist that
right,
lives and breathes this all day long. I want to know, like, if you heard that your kid is saying something negative about somebody else's body, and if, for a
right,
variety of ways,
right,
like, any sort of ism that's coming out,
right,
fat
yeah.
phobia, like, or a negative, like a
I'm trying
gender
to
stereotypes.
remember a time. So my kid grew up in my kid grew up I mean, I think this is okay. My kid grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and
Hmm.
in down
A lot
like
of
inner city downtown DC.
and a lot of
And
diversity.
yeah, and diversity in a particular kind of way. So my
Yeah.
kid grew up sort of like one of a few or only white kid in school for a long time. And I remember the first time this child came home from school and told me, "Hey, I think I'm the only kid in the class that looks like me."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Yeah, I think that's true."
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, yeah.
I think that's true. And then I said, "But so what? You guys all, love Spider-Man and Wonder Woman."
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and we had this
Everybody
whole
likes the same cartoons. Yeah.
we had this whole conversation about like, well, what do you guys talk about? With your 5-year-old, 4-year-old
Mm-hmm.
selves. Like, what are you down
Mm-hmm.
with? And
Mm-hmm.
by the end of that conversation, the kid was like, "Yeah, yeah, okay, I look different." And like and I said, "And you all look a little different from each other. It's not like all the other kids look the same but you," which wasn't true, right? And my
Yeah.
kid was at that
Diversity.
point the only
Yeah.
white kid in that preschool, but it's not like everybody else was the same, right? And so, we had this
Yeah.
conversation
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
like, well, everybody looks a little different from each other, and here's how they looked at. What do we think about
Mm-hmm.
that? What do we think about
Mm-hmm.
the fact that everybody looks a little different from each other? So I went back and I talked to my kids' preschool teacher,
Mm-hmm.
and she was just the most wonderful. She was like this beautiful Guyanese grandma. She was like a hug personified, and I
Yeah.
just went back to her and I said, "Hey, I just want you to know my kids thinking about the fact that my child's the only one who has a particular skin tone in the
Mm-hmm.
classroom." And we had that conversation and I just talked it through with her, and she was like, "Well done." We did that, and she had my back too, right? Like, so she
Yeah.
was, and I think it was partly just not being afraid to have that conversation. So on the one hand, like my kids growing up in this like very, I would say, racially skin tone diverse environment, always has,
Yeah.
still is in that
Yeah.
situation, and has thrived in that, right? And I
Yeah.
think and learned a lot in that
Yeah.
environment. We've had a lot of conversations about that my child's whole life. At the same time, I don't think there's always been as much socioeconomic diversity. I don't think there's always been diversity in terms of disability
Yeah. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
in terms of body type. right?
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
we have had conversations about larger bodies, smaller bodies, bodies that are
Yeah.
limited kind of in
Yeah.
in other ways. We've had conversations about sexuality and gender and all of
Yeah.
that. And I think that we've definitely had conversations where the kids said something that I don't understand, is um it's not okay, or it's a mis it's a it sounds like a negative perception of someone else.
And it's educating through that.
It is the approach that you've taken. Just like when the kid came home and was like, "Why am I the only one who looks so pasty?" I mean, look at me, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
why am
Yeah.
I the only one who
You
looks
come
so
by that
pasty?
honestly.
Yeah, I'm like, well, because genetically you're mine. That's why you're
Yeah.
pasty.
Yeah.
So, but we also had a similar we had just have a similar dialogue. When I'll hear something, I'll say, I've said, "Hey, let's
Mhm.
pause. What do you mean by that?"
Mhm.
And let's look at the history of what that word is.
Yep.
Let's look at the
Yeah.
history of what that means when you say that. And I didn't always just make my kid write really long form essays or
I know.
whatever.
I know. I
You know,
know. But that
but it
was one of
was
my
like,
favorite parenting moments.
yeah. But it was a lot of like, let's look this up together. And
Yeah.
for me, that also was demonstrating another value that I've tried to instill in my child, which is curiosity, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
About the
Yeah.
world. Be a
Yeah.
curious person. Want to learn,
Yeah.
want to understand other people. And that word means a different thing to different people. And do you want people to understand you that way?
Yeah.
No. Okay, well
Yeah.
then we can't
Yeah.
use it that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
Exactly. Yeah. So if we wrap it all up, what we're talking about here is no, in terms of raising kids with strong body image, you don't have to have it all figured out. You really don't. We don't. And I preach this stuff all day long, and I don't claim to have it all figured out. But two, what you do need to have is the ability to like have honest conversations with your kids about, like about what you're feeling and what you're experiencing and about the ways that you're moving yourself forward around like your beliefs in your body and yourself and the ways that you want to help them move forward, right?
yep.
We need to be able to, and so that's that whole part of curiosity. It's like being able to say, like, let's look at this together.
Yes.
Let's look at this together. And if you're listening to this and you don't have children, but you're thinking about it, I think that honest conversation comes with yourself.
Yes.
Like, why am I
Right.
judging myself so critically when I look at myself in a photo? Where did I learn that shit from and how do I want to let it go? You
That's
know?
right. That's right.
Why am I judging my thighs so harshly?
Yeah.
Like where did I learn that from and where am I learning to let
Why
it
does
go?
it matter? Who
Why does it
cares?
matter? But we can teach our kids that really while we're teaching ourselves that. So if they come and they say something negative to you about their body, you get to go like, all right, I hear you, I validate what you're saying, and let's be curious through that. Where did you learn that language?
That's right.
It's the same thing. We don't have to be perfect around this, parents. We don't. But what we do have to do is approach ourselves with compassion and curiosity, and that's the same thing that we can give our kids.
Yes. That's right. Amen to that. All right.
Amen to that. I think we actually just did a succinct wrap up.
We
I don't know
did.
that we've ever done that before,
I
Heather.
think we're done.
I
Yeah.
think I think there's a mic drop in there.
There you go.
Thank you everyone for joining us today on Feed the Matriarchy. Stay tuned for next week. We have somebody coming on next week that's in the docket. Who's just going to piggyback off of a lot of this.
Perfectly, actually. Yeah.
Perfectly,
this is a really
actually.
great segue. So,
Yeah, sometimes it just
excellent.
works out like that. All right. See you next week, everybody.
Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to Feed the Matriarchy. If today's episode sparks something in you, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's ready to take up more space. You can follow along on Instagram at Feed the Matriarchy Collective for more conversations, resources, and sister-style real talk. Until next week, stay hungry for truth, compassion, and liberation.